My guest today just might have watched more Galesburg basketball games than anyone. A former Streaks player in the late 1950s, a radio broadcaster spanning 6 decades, and now a superfan, Jimmie Carr has been a fixture around Galesburg basketball for more than 70 years. Jimmie played 3 seasons for legendary coach John Thiel, and he was the second leading scorer on a team led by another Streaks legend, Bumpy Nixon, that finished third in state in 1959. We'll definitely talk more about Coach Thiel and Bumpy later in the interview. A career radio sales consultant, including many years right here at WGIL, Jimmie was an instantly recognizable and popular radio voice for Streaks basketball from the 1960s through 2017, serving as a color analyst for both Streaks boys and later girls basketball. The Galesburg Athletic Hall of Famer joins me today to talk some Silver Streaks basketball. Jimmie, welcome back to Galesburg WGIL.
Well, Jay, it's great to be back. Great to see you, and great to see Roger, Lundeen, and the facilities. It brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah, you spent many years here. So before we go back to talk about Silver Streaks basketball in the 50s and your career, let's kind of dig into the big news of the week. Our friend and coach Evan Massey called it quits this week after 50 years in coaching and 46 as the head varsity coach at Galesburg. What was your reaction when Evan announced that this week?
Well, I had a feeling that it might be coming, although Evan didn't tell me, of course. But it's one of those things that I think Evan will be happy. He certainly paid his dues, and he's leaving the program in great shape. Whoever will inherit it, I hope and think it will be Lexi DeMott, but he's leaving it in great shape. But Evan did a great job. He produced student athletes, which is an overplayed word, I think, at times, but he really did. The girls were not only great players, but they were great students, had great character. And all of that, I think, was reflected because of Evan and his attitude and his approach to the game. And he will truly be missed, not only by the people in Galesburg, but throughout the state. The coaches who knew Evan and watched him and emulated him a lot, he will be missed, and we all will miss him. A great, great job.
So not to necessarily compare John Thiel and Evan Massey, but are there any similarities in their careers and their contributions to Galesburg basketball?
It sure is. And you have that kind of success. I'm sure a lot of people, and I certainly did, and I was close to John, and I'm pretty close to Evan, but I was very close to John. And the way John built his program, Evan built his the same way. Now times change, and Evan probably put more into his program. He had to with his summer program, which was copied by many people in the state of Illinois, and some other things that John didn't do, and he didn't have the facilities to do it. But they both approached it the same way. They knew what they wanted. They followed the kids in the early years. I know when John got the job, he went down and looked at the grade school kids early. That didn't happen a lot. And it's certainly the junior high school kids. So he was familiar with them. Well, Evan, his program was so outstanding that kids could run his offense when they were in the 6th grade.
Yeah, down the grade schools.
Yeah. So he did all of that, and that's one of the reasons he had the success he had.
Yeah. So let's go back to your childhood, or at least your early teens. What are your first memories of Galesburg sports? Did you go to games back then?
Yes, I did. I lived only 2 blocks from old Steel Gym, and we all had heroes. Our kids looked up to, thank God they looked up to me, and Odie and Dave Cox and Bumpy. But I looked up to people like Mike Owens and that team, and Russ and Ray Young and Bill Granning. And I would come up and watch practice. Well, that's how I got to know John. In the evening, they practiced on Wednesday nights, and I would come up and watch them. Sometime I would be the only one sitting there. And John would have me sometime keep some stats and come over and talk to me. And I just enjoyed that so much. And that was my first, I think that was enhanced my interest in basketball, certainly at the high school.
Okay. This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to former Silver Streaks basketball player and longtime radio color analyst Jimmie Carr. So you're at GHS. What was it like to be a Silver Streak? You know, you said you had heroes and you'd watched them. It's still early in John Thiel's career, but what was it like when you're finally at the high school and you're on the team?
Well, you kind of got awed by him. The steel gym was small in those days, and the fans were. We were surprised. The fans really liked us like they did. We would see them lining up on Thursday, waiting for tickets to get into the game for Friday's game, going over to Floyd LeGrand and the old gas station over there on the square. And we had to get used to that. But then one of the things, Jay, I think made us, really helped us become student athletes and become better people is the fans' approach to us. They almost adopted us. I know I had people who see me today, and some of them have passed on that talk about when I played, when Odie played, Bumpy, of course. But I think that's one of the things that made us was the fan support that we had here in Galesburg.
So we mentioned Bumpy Nixon a couple times, and you know he's a legendary player. But I think the legend of how he arrived in Galesburg is probably just as interesting. What's your take on how Bumpy and Lincoln and his mother ended up here in Galesburg?
Well, Odie and I were in the Quad Cities at a teenage club up there, and Bumpy came in. And we knew Bumpy our junior year, of course, when we played down at Quincy and played against Bumpy. But didn't know him. We just knew he could play. Mm-hmm. And Bumpy came over to us and said, "Hey, we've moved to Galesburg." Well, we had heard rumors they might. And we said, "Oh, yeah, okay, good deal." Well, we took it as that. We wasn't awe-struck by him. We were happy to have him, but we knew we were going to have a good ball club. John told us at the end of our junior year, he walked in the room, and we did not have a good year. We won a lot of games, though, but we didn't have a good year. But John said, "Well, congratulations, Doug Mills was on our team, and he was an All-Stater and did a great job." But he said, "That's it. I'm glad the season's over with. I'll see you guys next year." And he walked out. And that ended it. I think Fulton beat us or somebody like that. And at that time, we didn't know Bumpy was coming. But we knew that we were going to have a good ball club because Roger Fox, a young man that was 6'5" himself, and would have been a good ball player. It's too bad he didn't get a chance. But when Bumpy rolled in, Roger and everybody understood what we had there. We knew Bumpy could play, and when by the first day of practice and everything, John talked to us about what we were going to do, what kind of setup we were going to use with Bump. And Bumpy couldn't dunk the basketball, Jay, and that was surprising.
And how tall was he?
6'4".
Okay.
And John said, "I'm going to teach you to dunk it." And he did. He worked with him. And at the probably mid-season, Bumpy could dunk the basketball. So, and Bumpy was only a junior, you have to remember. His brother was a sophomore, Lincoln Nixon, who could play himself. But it was fun. One thing we liked was we started the same 31 games. And I think that may have been the only team to do so. Maybe Mike Owens' year, John Thiel's first year, maybe they had the same 5. I'm not sure. But we started the same 5. We went 29-2, and all of us started.
Okay. So the 1950s were a time when more black athletes were given an opportunity to play sports in Galesburg. And among those, I mean, obviously yourself, but a couple were the Kimbrough twins, A&E, Albert and Elbert Kimbrough. You know, they excelled in the classroom and on the athletic field. What impact did they have, not only in sports, but maybe socially in Galesburg?
a lot of impact. That ball club, John and I spent a lot of time in later years, him telling me some of the things that he and his wife went through. John started 4 black players on that ball club, the twins, the Kimbrough twins. We just called them E and A.
Mm-hmm.
And Al Williams, and Jim Range.
Uh-huh.
And then Bobby Hoffman was a great guard they had also on that team. And John said he would receive all kind of letters and everything about starting those guys, but they were quality and they were men. And he always said that. He said these guys were men playing a boy's game. You heard that before, but John was right. The Kimbrough twins had all the maturity in the world. We all looked up to them. They had a lot of physicality with them, and just super athletes. I still think they are the greatest all-around athletes that I've seen here at Galesburg. And you're right. They went on to become very special people. They went to Northwestern. They both got graduated from up there. Kimbrough went into the teaching field after getting hurt. He tried out for the pros and with the Colts, and he got hurt. And so he went back and started teaching at Bloom Township. Of course, was the big one. He went on and played 9 years in the NFL, starting out with the Rams, then went to the 49ers, and wound up his last year with the New Orleans Saints. But he was special. He could really play. The battles that he and Mike Ditka had. Ditka was at Pittsburgh and at the Bears in later years, and he was smaller than Ditka. But boy, they would go at it. He playing defensive back, and it was fun watching those guys.
So you kind of mentioned, about Coach Thiel being willing. How much, we talk about going to state and his wins and losses, but how much of his legacy is the fact that he did have more black players playing?
I think a lot of it, he kind of revolutionized that. You look at it now and you think, boy, why did that happen? But this was Galesburg. Pete Theory was one of the players. I was in grade school, and he was the only one on the team. And he played, he started. I think the coach was Phillips maybe, or one of them there. But and we kind of almost accepted it. And then when the Kimbroughs come, athleticism great athletes can change a lot of things, and they did. But it's hard to believe that it was like that years ago.
This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to former Silver Streaks basketball player and longtime radio color analyst Jimmie Carr. And you mentioned this earlier, but what was it like to play in Steel Gym? It was before my time. Kind of describe what the Steel Gym was like.
Well, it was in those days, we thought it was big, but it was a small gym. I think it did seat 2,000.
And that was located downtown across where the public safety building area is down.
Absolutely. Now. And we, it was a good place. They didn't have, we didn't have glass bank boards. So when we would play a school with glass bank boards, we would have to go over to Knox College and work out over there on Thursdays. John said we'd go over there and get used to the glass bank boards. But it was an old gym, but it was the fans were right on us, and I think they had a lot to do with our success too. And they did also out at what is now Thiel Gym when we packed the place. But it was packed every night, and people fought for tickets. And as I said, it was something to see them standing out. We would be on our way home to rest, getting ready for the game, and there's people lined up at noon waiting for tickets. But Steel was
how big was that
special.
gym compared to like the gym now?
Oh, it was smaller.
It was
a lot smaller. It seated about 2,000 standing room. And they sold it out, but yeah, a lot smaller.
So you played for Coach Thiel and were later good friends with him, broadcast his games. How big a figure was he, he was almost kind of a mythical figure in Galesburg. I mean, how big was he?
He was, and sometime can get in your way. John could have moved on, and I think in later years when we reminisced, he probably should have, because he would have been, I think, an outstanding college coach
Mm-hmm.
because he knew what he wanted to do. He knew what kind of offenses would work and what wouldn't work, defenses. And I think he would have been a good college coach. But in Galesburg, he was. He was kind of larger than life. He was a legend. When he had his way about him where the fans, some appreciated it, some didn't. But he made his presence known. When he walked, he's that kind of a guy. When he walked out behind his team, we'd come on the court, or the other teams would come on the court, and Thiel would come on. He was as big as the players. Now that's different.
Mm-hmm.
The coaches, I don't think, get the credit they deserve now. But John, in those days, John certainly did.
So I want to talk about Streaks teams, coaches, and players, but let's start with teams. Tell me your best handful of boys teams that you've seen at Galesburg High School.
98.
98?
That was the best team I think Galesburg ever had. That was they had 2 All-Staters. They had some quality players surrounding them, and they had a coach that I think was a coach of the 21st century. That was the best we've had.
In Mike Miller.
In Mike Miller. People may debate that, but where John set the tone back in the 50s and 60s, 70s, when Mike came in, Mike inherited a team with, I think, the best player Galesburg's had in Joey. And he had a player that kind of going to get lost when you start talking about great players at Galesburg, and that's Rod Thompson. Rod was a heck of a player. If Rod would have stayed at Carver, we would have known more about him. But when he came here, he was in Joey's shadows. And he accepted that. And he went on to Iowa and became a player there, a very popular player. Matter of fact, he was voted the most popular player on the team, Rod was, his senior year. But that, to me, was the best team that I've seen. But the other teams, and John says, the team that he enjoyed coaching the most was the team that you asked me about with Al Williams and the Twins. Because John thought that he got more out of those kids than out of those young men than any team he's had. He said the other teams, starting out when his first year with Mike Owens and that bunch, or with us, with our team, we had a lot of talent. Kelly's year in '66, they had a lot of talent led by him, Kelly. In '68, they had a great ball club with Triplett and that bunch. So, and they all finished second in the state, of course. But it was a good year for all of us. And John, he had some great team and some great players. But I do think '98 was the best team I have seen in Galesburg.
Just to flashback a minute here. So we talked about Bumpy a little bit in that '59 team. You finished third, right? And then the next year, how much better? You know, that's the year that Bumpy was ruled ineligible, right, because of the age restriction. Right. You know, is that a state championship team if he's there, do you think?
I think so. They finished, they won the regional, and that ended Bump's career right there because he turned 19. But I think they would have. That's 2 years we could have won it. The Bumpy year, I think, when he didn't play, and then I hate to admit it, but my year, we got upset, and we should have. We just had an off afternoon when West Aurora beat us, and they always bring up Small, but he was kind of insignificant. We knew he could play, but they had another player, John said, who scored 20-some points, and he hadn't done that all season. But anyway, that's 2 years Galesburg could have won the state tournament. I don't think they could have when they went with the Kimbroughs. I don't think, even with Mike Owen's team, West Rockford beat us his first year in overtime. And even though we had a 15-point lead on him, John goes in open court, and boom, and we lose. But and in '66, Kelly's senior year, we lost to Thornton, and they were a better ball club. And we finished second. And then in '68, we finished second with triplet in that bunch. But Evanston they had 2 All-Staters, and they were very good. So.
In the next decade, in the '70s, we had the '76 team with Mike Campbell and Scott Kelly. What did you think about that team?
That team could have, and Mike reminisces about that team because, as you know, Morgan Park beat us, and I think they were probably as good as Morgan Park because with Mike and Scott, that gave us the big men up front. We had some nice guards on that ball club, and that may be a team that you kind of forget about, but that was a team. And that team, though, beat the best team in the state, probably.
Right.
And we had Richwoods here.
In the regional.
With 2 All-Staters, and boy, they were good. Mike and I went over there to watch them and scout. He wanted to scout them, and that was when Peoria played a lot through the week. And Mike would help him with the notes and all of that, because they had Wessels and Smith, 2 big all-state guards that all went to college and had success there. And it was tough for that team because Mike could have won it. We could have won it that year, but things happen down there. It's not easy.
Okay, let's break down some of the best players, and I think it's pretty much accepted that maybe the top 3 are Bumpy Nixon, Dale Kelly, and Joey Range. And you've kind of already talked about Joey, but do you think those 3 are far and away the best?
Yeah, I do. I really do. We had some players that, like I said, can get lost in the track, but Dale, of course, was just a fine guard. Dale had the willpower to win and to succeed himself as an individual and as a team, but he felt that he could get the job done. He perfected himself to be a great shooter in high school and, of course, up at Northwestern, and he was a great player. And Bumpy, we talked about him, and then Joey was a young man who played in later years. And I don't know if Bumpy, people say, oh, Jimmie Bumpy. Well, Bumpy played in the 50s and 60s, and it's tough to compare. For me, a guy who played then and a guy like Joey who played in the 90s, because they could do so many things. Joey was quicker. He was the quickest player that I've seen at his height. He jumped well, and he was not a great shooter. If they were playing horse, Bumpy could beat him, and of course Bumpy could play with Dale playing horse, because Bumpy had a real nice shot. But Joey had so many variety of shots, and people told me at Iowa I would go over there and interview Dr. Tom Davis when Joey was there, and Dr. Tom would say some of the things that Joey did surprised him all the time.
Okay, let's talk about coaches, and we've talked about a few, but I think it's kind of fascinating. You know, you mentioned Gerald Phillips was there forever, but then let's talk about John Thiel, Mike Owens, Barry Swanson, Mike Miller, Mike Reynolds. I think probably those are the top coaches that have been around since you've watching. What made each of those successful, do you think?
Well, Mike Miller was an innovator. He studied the game. He put in a lot of innovated. He used his kids in the right spot at the right time. And I think he really made Joey and Rod both players that better than what they were. Reynolds was a different kind of a coach, a fiery coach, a coach who played with a lot of emotion, a coach with a lot of emotion, and a guy who the kids respected because he knew when to crack the whip and he knew when to give them a little hug. And
I kind of thought with Mike Reynolds, he coached at a time when some kids didn't go out, but he was able to get kids to go out that normally maybe wouldn't. They always say the quote, walking the hallways, and I thought that was one of his.
And Jay, he did it a little different than most. He wouldn't go around telling people what he was going to do. Mike he would talk to the players themselves privately. Some of the players told me, that we didn't know that they knew Mike or respected Mike like they did, but they really did, because Mike really believed in them. And of course, he had success. He won every year he was here. He won, I believe he won 20 games. Didn't he?
I think so, yeah, quite a few times.
Yeah, and he's having success now at DeKalb. So I just wished he would have stayed and let his boy play for us because he was a nice little player now.
Yeah. How about Barry Swanson?
Barry was a chip off the old block. He was just like he was Thiel. Barry had success playing with Thiel. His team went to the state, of course. And then Barry implemented a lot of the things John wanted to do. Barry even played with the Fire. Coached with the Fire that John coached with. I think a lot of the things Barry did was you'd look out there and say, "Hey, that was Thiel. Thiel wanted to do that kind of thing." Barry didn't want to. John could take a lot of the pressure that goes with coaching at Galesburg High School. Barry, I don't think he really wanted that, and he finally got out, and he's a great teacher, and that's what he really wanted to do. And I think he and I had fun doing the game, so I'm glad he retired.
Yeah. By the way, how difficult was it for Mike Owens to follow a legend like John Thiel?
Well, it could have been tougher than what it was. It was tough. But Mike, when he came over from Limestone and as John's assistant there at handling the JVs, Mike made those JVs. The JV program used to be something of a burying ground. The kids used to, if you were a sophomore, good enough, you played with the varsity. If you stayed with the sophomore. The JVs was a place where if you paid the price, you wanted to be on the team, you could play and they'd give you a game. Mike came in there and built that program up. He had a kid that, when you talk about players, you asked me about the player, this kid went further than any player, and that's Ian Davies.
Right.
He did things no other player at Galesburg. He played in the Olympics.
Right, for Australia.
And did a great job, and went to Parsons College and set records there. So, and Mike did that. And then when Mike became head coach, he brought Leon with him, and Davis had a good year with Mike. But Mike had it tough because it's tough following John, and we'll probably talk a little bit about following the coach who just retired, because that it can be tough. But Mike, I think, was the right man to do that because he had his own way. He said, "I'm going to do it my way," and he changed the offense. He changed some of the other practice schedules and a lot of other things. We went in, John didn't want to play in the holiday tournament. He said it would give the kids a chance to relax and he could scout. Well, Mike said, he wanted to play in the tournament because he said it's tough to get the champagne, and if you can win a holiday tournament, that's a trophy for the kids. So
I don't think you can really get by without playing in a holiday tournament now, do you?
No. You would have to play in a holiday tournament, and John, I'm sure John would recognize that.
Yeah. So let's discuss how you got into broadcasting the Silver Streaks. You end up doing color commentary for Galesburg basketball for years. How did you get into it?
Roger Coleman, he heard me on the other radio station with Swick at noon. I was working actually on my power. Well, at noon, I would take my lunch break, and Swick and I would talk about the state tournament. And that was when it was in Champaign. And Roger heard me. So when Russ Lynn quit and insurance business and moved on, Roger called me in and said, "Why don't you? Would you like to do the games? Try it." And I thought, "Well, we can try it and see." Well, I enjoyed it. I worked with a guy named Bill Pearson, and who helped me tremendously, and we became good friends. Bill, like me, Bill didn't start out as a broadcaster, and he was a salesman like I did, but Bill developed into a real good play-by-play man.
How would you describe your style of broadcasting? I know I've talked to Evan about this, and he always appreciated how you never made broadcasting about yourself, and you always remembered it was about high school kids.
I think Roger talked to me about that too. You don't want to get on there talking about what I did, back in the day and all of that. I wanted to make sure that I didn't do that, and it's for the kids. The reason I did that, I enjoyed the kids, and I enjoyed the coaches. I made a lot of friends in the coaching business that I enjoyed interviewing. Look forward every year to interviewing them. Sometime when I'm at the game, I'll see some of them now, and it's just a great pleasure to talk to them. But I always wanted to try to make sure that it was the kids' game. It's their play. They're the stars. We're just here to let the people know what's going on the court.
You mentioned Bill Pearson. Talk about some of the other partners that you worked with as a broadcaster.
Oh, so many. That obviously Rob Strack, because we did the games for over 20 years, I think, or close to it. Rob was a compassionate guy who had a little trouble with the officials most of the time, but he really worked at it, and he loved it. Barry Swanson and I did the game. Barry was never a broadcaster, but we had fun with it, and of course John would ride with us a lot, and it was a fun time there. I think toward the end, the most talented guy was a guy named Bo Spencer. He could do the games from his computer and all of that, and he was a high-tech guy and had stats like you wouldn't believe, and he was a special guy. He's out of the business now, and I think he could have moved on up. Sean Temple, when I was with him, one of the nicest men I ever did, and we mashed so much because as I got older and had trouble getting around, Sean would help me out a little bit. So I'm leaving out some guys, but all through the years, I had some good guys I did the games with and enjoyed. Even Pete Weber, who turned out to be a famous hockey announcer and big time, but Pete and I did the games together.
Kind of talk about why is it so important that the games are broadcast on the radio?
I think it is important because it gives the kids the pride that if they didn't have the radio broadcast, you don't think they wouldn't. I think they would be missing something. They wouldn't be as well known.
Kind of makes it a big time atmosphere, big time feel.
It does.
They feel like they're maybe playing in a college program.
Absolutely, it gives you a chance to. Hey, we look at Kira Kilgore, the amount of publicity she received this year. That gives her a lot of pride. It's not big-headed. It's a lot of pride. And Evan's teams, those girls through the years, with all the broadcasting we've done and carrying those games, I think those girls made those girls somewhat a little bigger than life. Some of them.
Yeah. Finally, what keeps you going to the games? We still see you there at the Streets game, boys and girls. What keeps you going?
Well, as long as I can get these old knees and everything there, because I love the game. I love the kids, and I respect. I wanted to see Evan's team this year because I had a feeling, but so I was at his games, and now we got to turn that boys program around. But I think it's just great being out there now. It's a different atmosphere than it was in the past, but I still enjoy it.
Okay. And that wraps up my conversation with Jimmie Carr. Jimmie, your voice will ever be the soundtrack of Silver Streaks basketball for so many of us. And, I've treasured so many of our conversations and friendship along the way. So I just want to tell you I appreciate you joining me on Galesburg in Focus.
Jay, I enjoyed it very much, going down, remembering a lot of things, bringing back something good and bad things. But I certainly enjoyed it, and congratulations to you. You're doing a heck of a job.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jimmie.